I was surprised by the result, but not shocked that way around. Or was I shocked and not surprised? I'm not sure, I can't remember. But anyway, I was horrified. I went to bed, I was actually frightened the night before. I couldn't even, I was so frightened by the prospect of the result that I wasn't actually following it on the television. I was following the foreign exchange markets. I couldn't take anymore. I'd had so much of this endless shit of, people lying through their teeth. I mean, about notably Boris and Michael Gove and the disgusting Nigel Farage. And I couldn't even watch it on the television. So I was following it in bed until about 2 in the morning on the foreign exchange market, and I could see the pound rising, and I was thinking, okay, that's good. It went up to 153. I went to sleep. I woke up in the morning to find out the news that we'd lost. I was just devastated. Poorer is how I feel in every way. First of all, financially. There were some figures announced yesterday which said the pound had declined more rapidly in, I can't remember the exact period, I think since Brexit, than the peso. No currency has declined more. So if you're any assets at all, in any real sense, you're poorer. You might, and if we're spending money in this country, thus far, we haven't yet felt the full effect of inflation, but we will. Apple put all their prices up yesterday, substantially. And it's going to happen. Of course it is. We import far more than we export. We're going to have inflation. That's what we voted for. We voted for inflation, for increased price rises. The pound has fallen. Mrs. Thatcher, I think, was a big fan of having a strong currency, believing that it was how people evaluated the strength of your economy, and it's pretty clear what the rest of the world thinks about our economy at the moment. And I think Martin Sorrell made the same point in a speech he made yesterday. So poorer is how I feel. I feel poorer emotionally. I think that we are, I hate the idea of, as I said before, the small town Britain. I loathe the racism that is right behind it. And for the life of me, I do not understand why it is, whoever said that immigration controls trump everything else. That is not what they were saying at the time. They were talking about taking back control. But now it seems out there in the open, acknowledged that it's all about immigration. And quite honestly, it makes me sick. Being asked to do this is actually sort of bringing back all the anger I feel about it. So on a slightly lighter note, let me just tell you a little story about control and the issue of control and taking back control. About a guy called Edward Bootle Wilbraham, who was born in 1771, nearly a quarter of a millennium ago. Yet still his story has actually got bearing on this. That he later became Baron Skelmersdale, Earl Skelmersdale, and why he was ennobled is not clear. But other than the fact that he was an MP, and he'd been an MP for 4 constituencies, 4 separate constituencies, and then he became ennobled as the first Baron Skelmersdale. And the point about all this is that the very first of these constituencies was in Westbury in Somerset. And this was a rotten borough. Now, I don't know if you know what a rotten borough is, but I'm sure British people of my age who went to school and studied history at my time will understand. A rotten borough was a place where effectively the local squire put his own man in and told all the local, and got everybody together in the local agricultural workers, farm workers, in a place where there was no secret vote, and said, this is the bloke you're going to vote for. They were in the possession, effectively, of the local squirearchy. And that's how he got his first seat. And thereafter, he changed seats, and he was elected. But anyway, he's got his start with a rotten borough, and I think it's pretty obvious it was the Wilbraham Bootles, probably, who got him that start, his family. Anyway, roll on, and we now have the 7th Baron Skelmersdale in Parliament. This guy, who owes his title, and he is one of the 92 hereditary MPs who is entitled still to vote. We have most of the most of the Lords are members of the House of Lords are appointed, which of course is totally undemocratic in itself. But the 92 are still hereditary. This came about in the Blair government when they reduced the number of hereditary MPs entitled to vote, but still they have 92 who are. One of them is the 7th Baron Skelmersdale, descendant of the 1st Baron Skelmersdale, who got his start from a rotten borough. The point here is that this is entirely undemocratic, and the House of Lords this year and the last year voted down conservative legislation from the government infinitely more often than the EU have opposed our will. And I'm going to give you the exact figures. The EU flouted the will of your democratically elected representatives in 17 years, 56 times. That is the number of times we voted against something and we were overruled. The Lords, I'm just going to find this, sorry. The House of Lords did it 60 times, voted against government bills, stopped legislation of government bills 60 times in 1 year. 18 times as often as the EU did. The idea that the EU was constantly flouting our will is completely untrue. We voted, I think, for virtually everything. We, only over a period of 17 years, only in these 56 cases over 17 years was our will, as it were, opposed, was our vote on the wrong side. And yet, this ridiculous myth that we have control over our affairs and that it's more democratic has been allowed to persist. So that's what we've chosen. We've chosen the 7th Earl, descended from a man who got who was ennobled as a result of having a rotten borough, or representing a rotten borough, versus the EU. That's what we've got. That's the control we have.